Hi, I'm Jimmy Blakeney, product designer for Hჩვენ, and we are here inside a Hჩვენ Inflatable Greenhouse. I'm down here near one of the valves on one of the wall units, and I have our inflation pump here, and I have some repair supplies. So we're going to talk about the inflation pump, inflation maintenance, and we're going to talk about troubleshooting for potential repairs. So first of all, with the pump, just to be clear on the pump and how it works, you're going to have a separate battery. The battery is going to have a readout for the charge, so you can see how much charge it has, and it just plugs right into the back of the pump. On the pump itself, there is a way for you to switch it into the mode for an outlet, either a home outlet or a 12-volt car outlet, or into battery mode, which is the upper mode, which it can go into here. Once you're in the mode that you want, you just select the pressure that you want, and for the Hჩვენ Greenhouse, 8 psi is the recommended pressure, from 6 to 8 psi being the ideal pressure. Once you select that, it'll revert back to 0 when it stops flashing, and then you will press start for the pump to start. Now, before you do any of that, I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to talk about the hose. So there are two ways you can insert the hose. One is for the inflation, and one is to deflate. So the deflate mode is only used if you're repacking, storing your greenhouse, but inflate is what you're going to typically be using for getting it set up and then topping it off, which we'll talk about in a minute. So when you're plugging the hose in, you're going to use this end with the large screw, and we're going to screw it into the inflate side. So I'm just going to line this up and screw it on. Now this is one place where you definitely could have a loose hose that could be causing the pump to leak. So be mindful of getting this nice and tight. Once that's tight, now I'm ready to use the pump to inflate once I turn it back on. So when it comes to inflating, so I've put it into battery mode. I can set this to 8 psi. I can see that it's on 8, it's flashing, and then it turns back to 0. Then what I'm going to do is I can go around and once you get your greenhouse set up, we recommend just every couple weeks after you've set it up, you'll want to squeeze the tubes and just get a feel for, like a hand feel for how they feel at 8 psi, because then you're going to kind of know where they are. Then as you're using your greenhouse, just check them every now and then to see how they feel. These tubes hold air for a really long time, but over time all inflatables will slowly lose air. So we recommend every couple weeks, every month, checking and topping them off with your pump. And so the nice thing is it only takes a few minutes to top off all 7 of the chambers that are in this inflatable greenhouse. So when you're doing that, it's just like the inflation process, but much faster because you're just topping it off. So once I have this on, it's set to 8. I can go to my valve on my each of the wall units and each of the beams. I'm going to just plug it in just like I normally would. Press down, turn to lock it in place. And then what it's going to do here is it's going to show me the pressure inside. So it's telling me now it's at 6.9, and I have it set to 8. So now I can hit start, and this is going to be very loud. I'll just do it for a second. And then it's going to automatically stop at 8. So that's how I top it off. You do that on each of your each inflation section, and you're topped off. So that's something we recommend you do. It's just a regular part of care and maintenance. Another thing, I'm going to leave that open, turn off my pump. Another thing has to do with troubleshooting. If you feel like you're doing this, but as you're checking the inflation, it seems that it is losing pressure more quickly than normal. Now keep in mind that air temperature will affect the pressure. So if you go from, let's say you set it up and it's 70 or 80 degrees outside, and then it gets cold. When it gets cold at night, let's say it drops from 80 degrees to 50 degrees at night, you're going to lose pressure in these tubes because the pressure is affected by temperature. And so you will feel this be lower pressure due to temperature alone. So that will impact it. But if you notice that you're losing pressure, then that's when it's time to troubleshoot. So the first thing you're going to do to troubleshoot your pressure is check your valves. And what I'm going to show you here is in your repair kit, you have a valve wrench. We'll talk about the repair kit itself, but in the repair kit there is a valve wrench. The valve wrench is meant to be used on this valve. Now, I'm going to demonstrate something for you, but the way you really want to do this is you never want to loosen your valve while it's inflated. You can tighten it while it's inflated, but loosening it the way I am is not recommended, and that's only because if you were to do that, the valve could go flying off. So it's just a safety reason. But what I'm going to show you is with this valve wrench, I can loosen this, and you're going to listen, and you're going to hear as I loosen the valve for demonstration purposes only. If you listen, now we can hear it. So you can hear the air escaping. That's from a loose valve. So the first thing that you can do if you suspect you could have a slow leak is take your valve and tighten it. So we're gonna go clockwise, and we can tighten the valve going clockwise and get that valve nice and snug. Now, very snug. So from our experience, this is one of the really common ways that you can lose a little bit of air, is because that valve just simply isn't seated all the way. So that is a great check. Now, if you tighten that valve and you're still losing air, or if this valve is making any noise, what you can do is take a spray bottle and you can actually spray soapy water. So if I loosen this back up, again, don't recommend you loosening with the valve wrench, only tightening. And when I hear that, I can then spray this, and bubbles are not forming around this rim. Now you can see them. Here they start. Now we can see that those bubbles are coming around the rim. Now what those big bubbles show us is that there's a leak, and you can see that it's around this edge. It's not coming from inside the valve. That's a good sign. That means it's because of the valve seating. If you had a faulty valve, you might have bubbling coming up from inside of the valve. So if that happens, then I know all I need to do is tighten that valve with the valve wrench, get it nice and snug, and you've reseated your valve and you're good to go. So that's step one. Now, if you check that and this section still seems to be losing air, the next thing to do is look for a potential leak somewhere else. Now, there's a couple ways you could have a leak. You could have a puncture where something actually punctured it. Of course, we stay away from sharp objects. We're just going to be mindful of that around inflatables in general. This material is extremely durable. This is thicker than inflatable paddle boards that we sell, and we rarely get punctures, but you certainly could puncture it with a sharp object. So in order to check for that, you would be spraying the soapy water all over the surface. However, another way that it could potentially have a leak would be along a seam. Now these seams are welded. These are really strong, really well sealed seams when we make these tubes. However, that is another potential place to leak. It's very, very rare. We rarely ever see this, but the way you can check for it is just by taking your soapy water and spraying it along the seam. When you spray this along the seam like this, you're gonna watch it and you're gonna see if any bubbles form. If there's any bubbles that will slowly build and form the way we saw around the valve, that would indicate you'd have a leak along a seam. And if you sprayed the entire tube, and you could find your leak, if it was like a puncture or abrasion or something on the bottom, that would be how you could find the leak with soapy water. So that's some care and maintenance. The final thing would be, let's say you do have a puncture. Let's say somebody does, for whatever, puncture a hole in one of these. The good news is it's really easy to repair, and it comes with what you need to repair it. So you're gonna have a tube of, this is special glue specifically for this type of material, and you're gonna have your patches of material. So with these patches of material and the glue, you're gonna be able to do your repair really easily. So of course the first thing is locating it. That's gonna probably be the hardest part, to find that leak if you have a slow leak. Once you've identified it, you'll wanna mark it, so you can mark it with a marker, and that'll indicate exactly where your leak might be. Next thing you'll want to do is you can cut the patch to size. So we like to cut these patches so that there's no corners. So we always want to make a round patch, so that way it just adheres better and there's nowhere for it to lift. After you've done that, you've got your location marked. You're then going to take your glue and you're going to take your patch and you're going to lay your patch over the top of the of the damaged area, and then we're going to take a Sharpie and trace around our patch. Once we've traced around our patch, we are then going to take the glue, apply the glue to the back of the patch. Before we do that, we're going to rough it up with some sandpaper. We're going to rough up the surface that we've marked off with some sandpaper. That'll allow the glue to stick better. Then we're going to apply the glue to both surfaces. We're actually going to apply it and let it dry for about 5 minutes. Then we're going to apply another layer of glue on there. You can do that with like one of those sponge brushes that will go on there, and you could also use like a small paintbrush. And once that's applied twice and you let it dry, then you're going to apply it a third time. So it's 5 minutes, apply it, dry for 5 minutes, apply it, dry for 5 minutes, apply it a third time on both surfaces. Then we're going to wait about a minute until it's not tacky, so you don't want it to be tacky. And then at that point, we're going to line up the marked area, we're going to press our patch into place, and we are going to roll this out using really, you can use your hands to do this and roll it out really carefully. You can use actually a roller to do this as well. Now keep in mind, I am showing you this on an inflated tube. Of course, you're not going to do it inflated. You are going to have to deflate it and lay it flat, because of course the glue will not stick if there's all that pressure pushing out on the patch. But that's the technique, that's how you'll want to do that repair. So I just wanted to walk you through the care and maintenance, how to use your pump to ensure proper inflation over the course of the year, the course of the seasons, if the temperatures change, how you can check your valves. We talked about the seams and checking your seams with soapy water, and how to do a repair if you were to have to do that. If you have any other questions or comments, leave them in the comments below, and we'll see you out in the yard.